Hi, so a bit of a depressing video today. We're looking at the 3 Ds of retirement: decline, depression and divorce. Now, lots of people dream about retirement. And what they do is they picture these endless holidays and time with their grandkids. But the reality is often very different and nobody wants to really talk about it. But I'm going to do in this video. So today I want to show you the 3 big problems with retirement, and these hit more people than you'd actually think. First, we're going to look at what happens to your body, because your health can drop really fast when you stop working. Then I'm going to look at the mental health side. Depression rates shoot up after people retire. The stats are really sobering. Then I'm going to show you why marriages break down, unfortunately. So more couples over 65 are now divorcing than ever before in the UK. We're also going to look at the money nightmare when these happen, because each one can destroy your finances. And I'll also explain why this happens to so many people, and we'll look at what the warning signs are for you to watch out for. So my name's Psychosocial, I'm the founder of financialeducation.co.uk, and I've got over 25 years experience of helping people plan for their retirement. So let's start with what retirement does to the body. See, the research here is actually really quite scary. So research by the Institute of Economic Affairs, the IEA, found major health problems for people when they did retire, because retirement decreases the likelihood of excellent health by about 40%. That's clearly not a small number. And retirement increases the probability of having at least one physical condition by about 60%. And it also increases the probability of taking a drug for a condition by about 60%. Now, this research from the Institute of Economic Affairs studied retired people, and these figures come from self-assessment studies. So, of course, they may not actually represent everyone's experience, but what it does do, it gives us a pattern, and that is clear across many people. So, the key question is, why does stopping work make you less healthy? Well, the reason is because your body needs regular movement to stay strong. Most jobs make you move around at least a little bit. Even desk jobs mean you're up and down through the day. But when you retire, that structure can disappear. So what happens is that people become much less active. They end around sitting around watching TV for hours and end at a day. And what this ultimately leads to is muscles getting weaker because they're not being used, and your heart health gets worse without regular activity, and your bones become more fragile over time. So these are the health risks that come with retirement. Alongside your physical health, it's just as important to look at your mental health. And that's why I think we need to look at what happens to your mind when you retire, because retirement increases the probability of clinical depression by about 40%. That's a huge number. And that's the same Institute of Economic Affairs research. Now, people think stopping work will make them happier, but for many, it's actually the exact opposite, because work gives you structure to your days, and losing that can have an impact on your mental health, because you know what you're doing and when you need to do it, because work is giving you that reason to get up and go about and do things. It makes you feel more useful to society, because work is actually connecting you to everyday people every single day. That's because you've got work colleagues, work friends, people to chat to. But when you retire, all that can vanish overnight. All of a sudden, the phone stops ringing, you wake up with nothing you have to do, and you can feel like you don't matter anymore. And what people also find is that their social circles shrinks really fast. So now it's important to understand that causation is complex here, because the link varies a lot from person to person. What the research shows is that men leaving stressful jobs sometimes feel better, but many people struggle with losing who they are, and that loss of structure is a real risk factor. And of course, individual experiences of retirement differ enormously for everyone. Some people will thrive while others will really struggle, but being aware of this as a risk is something that you can be prepared for. Now for the 3rd D, divorce. So divorces among people over 65 are going up. Between 2005 and 2015, in England and Wales, divorces changed. For women over 65, divorces jumped 38%. For men over 65, they went up 23%. And they call these people silver splitters, or the grey divorce. And the rate compared to all married people stayed fairly similar in that time. But more older people are actually choosing to get divorced. So why do couples split after 20 or 30 years? Well, retirement puts you together 24 hours a day. Through your working life, you've been used to time apart, and you've been used to this for decades, but suddenly you're in each other's space, and constantly. So many couples realise they grew apart years ago, unfortunately. Work and kids hid those problems. And different people have different ideas about what retirement actually means. One of you may want to travel, one of you may want to stay at home, one of you wants to be busy, one wants to relax. And these differences cause huge arguments every single day. And on top of that, health problems can add a massive strain. And one partner becomes a carer for the other, and this is what the anticipated retirement being about. So the relationship has changed from partner to patient and nurse. And this is partly one of the reasons why we're starting to see an increase in divorce. So what we're seeing here is decline, depression, divorce. Each one of these is going to destroy your money. But altogether, well, that's unfortunately going to be a total disaster. So let's start with physical decline and the health costs associated with that. You might need private treatment to avoid NHS waits, and the anxiety of waiting for the NHS may mean you want to spend that money. You know, a hip replacement privately costs around £15,000 in the UK. And of course, you might need some home changes, like having a stair lift added. And again, that's roughly £3,000 to £5,000 right there. Changing your bathroom to a wet room could cost you between £5,000 to £10,000. And all of a sudden, that starts to have a real impact. And depression, of course, stops you in doing things, and that keeps costs down. You can't manage money properly when you're depressed. What the research shows is that you make bad decisions about your finances. What you also do is you lose motivation, of course, to sort things out. But the biggest factor is divorce, and that's the biggest money killer. You're splitting everything you've built over 20 to 30 years. And in many cases, the family home has to be sold because neither person can afford to buy the other one out. And in many cases, pensions get split between the two of you as well. So what was enough for one household isn't going to be enough for two households. And because of the age, you can't normally get a mortgage. So you're stuck with that sale and whatever that sale gives you. So one of the big questions, of course, is why do these three problems hit so many people? Well, the first thing is nobody prepares you for what retirement really means. Everyone talks about the dream of endless freedom, but nobody really talks about losing your purpose and your structure. Because people don't realise work actually keeps them healthy, gives them purpose. Because moving around all day matters more than you might think. And your job is often forcing you to stay active. Second, we're living much longer than before. Now, in the 1930s in the UK, people lived to about 60 years of age. But now life expectancy in the UK is around 80 years of age. And it's higher for women than it is for men. So that's 20 extra years to fill. And many people in their 50s already have more than one health condition. And the reality is it only gets worse as you age. So living longer increases your exposure to these risks. So therefore, what that actually means is more years in retirement means more time for health problems. And more years mean more chance of a relationship strain. And talking about relationships, people aren't prepared for that retirement stress. Couples don't discuss what retirement will actually look like for them together. They just assume it'll all work out fine, but then unfortunately reality hits and it's nothing like what they expected. So this takes us to the big question, can you stop any of this happening? Well, here are some possible warning signs to watch out for. So on the physical side, watch for less movement. You know, if you're sitting down much more than you used to, you stop doing activities that you enjoyed before. You know, if you feel more aches and pains than normal, or you find yourself getting out of breath more easily. All of these can mean that your health is getting worse, unfortunately. Now, for depression, watch for losing interest in things. You know, all of a sudden, you're not that bothered about going out and seeing your friends or your family. You find yourself sleeping much more, or in fact, sleeping much less. You start to feel useless or like you don't matter, and you find yourself not being bothered to do anything. These are problems to watch out for. Then on the relationship side, watch out for spending less time together. If you find yourself avoiding your partner or your partner avoiding you during the day, you may find yourself arguing about small things constantly. You know, you have completely different ideas about how to spend your time. You know, one of you is much happier than the other. So if you notice several of these, seek professional advice. So these are all indicators, not guarantees, but they do mean you should take action now and prepare yourself for retirement. When it comes to next steps, here's what I recommend that you do right now. Firstly, think hard about when you want to retire, because working longer keeps you healthier and sharper. And this links back to the Institute of Economic Affairs research that I talked about earlier on. Because, you know, even part-time work can make a big difference because it provides you with some social aspects to life and keeps you physically engaged. Second, plan how you're going to stay active. Join clubs or groups before you retire, so you've got them to move into straight away. You know, book activities in your diary, like appointments, and treat exercise like a job that you have to do, not a nice thing to do. Make sure you walk every single day, even if it's just 20 minutes. You know, thirdly, talk honestly with your partner about retirement. Discuss what each of you actually wants to achieve during your retirement years and work out how you'll have time apart. Because that is important. It's also important to plan separate hobbies and have separate friends. Fourth, understand your money situation completely. Work out exactly what income you're going to have and know what you're actually going to spend each month. Budgeting is absolutely critical in retirement. And if you need it, consider getting advice from a regulated financial advisor and get advice on how divorce would affect you, just in case the worst happened. I'd also recommend that you build a support network outside your marriage, so you're not relying solely on your partner for all your social connections and interactions. It allows you to keep your own identity and keep your own interest. So to end this video, let me sum up all of what we've discussed today. So research shows retirement is associated with about 40% reduction in accident health and 40% higher risk of clinical depression. Divorces among people aged 65 and above has risen and continues to rise. Men are up 23%, women up 38% over 2005 to 2015. Now, these three risks often overlap and can reinforce each other, and the financial impact of any of them is huge, and together they can destroy everything that you've built together as a family group. But these problems aren't guaranteed to happen. That's the good thing. You can protect yourself if you plan ahead. So stay active and keep working if you can, and talk honestly about what retirement will mean for both of you. And just don't assume your marriage will survive the change. And of course, get your finances sorted out properly now. And again, I'd recommend that you build a life outside of just work and don't wait until retirement to start this. The earlier you can start, the better you will be prepared for retirement. Because the people who do well plan years ahead, and planning ahead gives you a much better chance of a happier retirement and avoiding the 3Ds. And you can reduce any of these risks. So if you like the video, please do like it and do subscribe to the channel. We have lots of retirement related content. Finally, good luck and goodbye.